You only need to do this once, and your vibration will never be the same again. And this is not a metaphor. When you hear and sing this sacred sound, your energy field starts to respond immediately. Your body gets goosebumps, your mind quiets down, your frequency shifts. But what nobody told you is what happens next. Because this sound carries a hidden code, an ancestral pattern taught by Thoth in the halls of Amenti, and hidden for centuries because it breaks the control you were taught to accept as normal. Since your birth, your vibration has been slowly dimmed, phrase by phrase, fear by fear, all to keep you away from your real frequency. But that frequency is still there, and today it will be reactivated. You'll understand why most techniques fail, and why, when you sing this sound just once, something inside starts to reorganize, something that even changes what happens around you. But pay attention. If you leave before the right moment, you'll miss the exact point where the activation happens. And there's no way to repeat it, because when this sound enters, it only needs to enter once. And if you have the courage to stay until the end, I'll show you how to transform this vibration into a new identity, so that no one can ever drag you back to your old frequency. Let's begin. Since your very first breath in this world, a reprogramming began. Disguised as education, care, good manners. But behind those seemingly innocent words, there was a vibrational engineering in full effect. Stop crying. Polite kids don't speak loudly. Life is hard. You have to work 3 times harder. Nothing comes easy. These weren't just pieces of advice. They were energetic seals, invisible marks that started to shape the frequency of your field from your early years. And this programming didn't happen just through words. The vibration of the people around you also spoke. The impatient looks, the absent touch, the rush of adults who never had time to stop. All of this was absorbed as the vibrational base of your being, not because you chose it, but because when we're still open, everything gets deeply recorded. You were pure, expanding frequency, but little by little, you were compressed. And the cruelest part is that this vibrational compression isn't consciously perceived. It sneaks into your daily life. It becomes a way of thinking, walking, breathing. And suddenly, you don't even remember what it was like to live with lightness, presence, unshakable trust in the flow of life. Anxiety wasn't born with you. It was taught. Scarcity too. Just like the fear of making mistakes, the habit of blaming yourself, the idea that you have to deserve what is already yours by essence. All of this is a collective vibrational inheritance, passed from generation to generation, never questioned. But there's an even deeper point, the physiological impact of this distorted vibration. Neuroscience has already shown that dense emotional patterns directly affect the autonomic nervous system. Constant fear triggers fight or flight mode. The body stays on alert. Digestion slows down. Sleep worsens. Immunity drops. And the mind becomes repetitive, reactive, limited. There's no room for new possibilities. The energy field retracts, and life starts to feel like an eternal survival cycle. Here's the detail that few people see. The more you repeat an emotion, the more it becomes a neurological track, a perception habit. And the universe, which is sensitive to your field, responds as if that is your true identity. The vibration you sustain becomes the filter through which reality manifests. That's why even the best spiritual techniques, when applied to a still programmed field, don't fully work. Because the old field is still operating behind the intention. The mind asks for change, but the vibration keeps repeating the old commands. Now, look around. Observe the structure of the world. The visual stimuli, the headlines, the algorithms, the schedules, the educational model. Everything is strategically designed to keep you in dense frequencies, because a high-vibrating being thinks clearly, feels deeply, sees beyond appearances, and that makes any control system obsolete. An awakened being doesn't need external authority. They are guided by their own vibration. And that is dangerous for those who profit from your disconnection. That's why vibrational engineering is strategic. It disguises itself as entertainment, productivity, meritocracy. But at its root, it keeps you always below your original power, as if there were an invisible net pulling your frequency down every time you try to rise. And of course, you try. Everyone tries. But it's like climbing a mountain with your feet tied, because no matter how much your mind wants to change, your energy base still vibrates the old codes. The result? You feel exhausted for no reason, doubt yourself for no reason. Try to start something new, but soon you're back to the same place. And the worst, you start to believe that the problem is you, that something in you is broken. But it's not. Your essence has always been pure creative frequency. What's acting is a program, and programs only have power as long as you accept them as reality. But this programming has a weak point, a center, a hidden axis that sustains the entire vibrational density structure. It's like a fold within the field, a point where the old command can be intercepted, undone, and rewritten. Thoth called this point the center of reversal, an invisible place in the field where density starts to dissolve and the original field can be restored. This center is not a physical place. It's a state of presence, and once accessed, the reversal begins. This point isn't outside of you. It doesn't require a complex ritual or a sacred place. It's closer than you imagine, more accessible than any external temple. Because this point of reversal that Thoth described as the key to breaking vibrational programming doesn't start with thought, but with sound. Yes, sound. Because everything you emit with your voice carries an energetic signature that goes beyond the logical meaning of the word. It's a vibration compressed into sound form. And that vibration doesn't just go outward. It passes through you first. It shapes your field before it reaches anyone else. When you speak, you're vibrating. And when you vibrate, you're creating. Have you ever wondered why some words give you goosebumps? Why, when someone speaks with truth, you feel it in your body? That happens because the body doesn't hear like the ears. It hears with the energy field. It registers the frequency before the brain even understands the sentence. And that's why you can say something positive 1,000 times and still feel no change. Because the word wasn't spoken with coherent vibration, and without coherence, there's no transformation. Thoth taught that the universe was created by an intonation, that before any form there was sound. And not sound as noise, but as intelligent frequency. Ordered vibration is what organizes chaos. And this was confirmed thousands of years later by a modern science that didn't even know it was rediscovering ancient knowledge, Cymatics. In Cymatics experiments, sand particles are placed on a vibrating plate. Specific sounds are played, and the particles start to move, forming perfect geometric patterns. A musical note and everything vibrates in spirals. A subtle tone and mandalas appear, a distorted sound and chaos returns. This proves with visual evidence that sound shapes matter. Now imagine, if a sound emitted externally organizes matter, what do you think happens to your energy field when you release a vibration through your mouth? When you say something with intention, feeling, and presence, your field responds. Your cells listen. Your reality listens, because everything around you vibrates. And everything that vibrates responds to similar frequencies. The word, then, is not just a way to express yourself. It's a creation tool. And like any powerful tool, it can either heal or destroy. It depends on how it's used. When you repeat phrases of discouragement, doubt, criticism, or guilt, you're not just venting. You're crystallizing patterns in your field. You're coding your reality with the same vibration you want to break. And when you speak with truth, when you use words that come from the center and not the mask, the sound that comes out of you reorganizes everything around. Because it carries living frequency, and that's why certain words heal, soothe, bring peace. It's not the content, it's the vibration they carry. But that's just the beginning. There is a specific type of sound that is not just spoken, it's sung. A sound that isn't born from the mouth, but from the heart. And when it's chanted the right way, something rare happens. The vibrational field of the being aligns with a frequency that surpasses the barriers of time, trauma, density. A sound the ancients called a seed, an origin code. A vibration that, when activated, rewrites everything. The thing is, this sound can't be said just anyway. It requires a specific state, a specific moment, and a specific origin within you. Because it's not the sound alone that holds the power, it's where it comes from. That's why the ancients didn't use sound just anyhow. They knew that certain vibrations weren't just pretty or comforting frequencies. They were portals, vibrational triggers that, when activated at the right time and place, could completely realign a person's energy field, and that's why they were never repeated carelessly. Imagine this, a single chant, and the field reorganizes, not gradually, not with effort, but like a locked code finally getting unlocked, like an original frequency, dormant for years, suddenly being released. This isn't a myth, it's not allegory. It's what the initiatic schools called sacred vocalization. But here's where most people don't understand. The power of these vocalizations wasn't just in the sound, but in the silence that came before, in the preparation, in the intention, in the vibrational origin of the chant. That's why they weren't repeated, because if the vibration was already activated, repeating the frequency could create noise, excess, and even interference in what had already been harmonized. The Egyptian priests, the Mesoamerican shamans, the Himalayan monks, they all had one thing in common. They treated certain sounds as living entities, as consciousnesses that interacted with the field of whoever emitted them. And so, what had already been fulfilled wasn't repeated. Some sounds were chanted only once in an initiate's entire life, a single chant at a single moment, sealed by absolute silence before and after. Because that sound wasn't a mechanical repetition, it was a living invocation. And once activated, it reorganized the vibrational centers definitively. Now think, why was this wisdom forgotten? Why do we repeat so much today without intention, without silence, without preparation? Because the true value of vibration was reduced to technique. The mystical became performance, and the power of frequency was trivialized into hollow mantras, repeated without awareness. But the ancients knew what they were doing. They knew the risks of activating certain frequencies unconsciously. They knew that sounds like OM or RA weren't just spiritual expressions. They were vibrational keys. And like any key, they require the right door at the right time. There are records of ceremonies where a single sound was chanted by an entire group in an absolute state of alignment. And in that instant, physical changes happened. People would break into tears for no apparent reason. Breathing changed. The body tingled. The environment transformed. It was as if reality around had been temporarily reorganized. And this wasn't an exception. It was spiritual technology. The precise chanting of a specific sound, done with total awareness, opened internal passages. It unlocked blocks that no conversation, no analysis, no conscious effort could access, because it was the sound vibrating at the origin. And when something vibrates at the origin, everything around adapts. And what's most intriguing is that this wisdom appears in various cultures, at different times, with different names but with the same structure. A primordial sound, a sacred chant, a single time, as if the entire universe was saying in different languages, the right vibration, at the right time, is enough. But there is one sound that goes beyond all of these. A sound that, according to the oldest Hermetic records, wasn't just a vibrational catalyst, but the very seal of the original frequency. And it isn't spoken, it's felt. Thoth revealed that this sound was the first frequency emitted after the primordial silence, and that when it is chanted by a human being in a state of alignment, it reorganizes not only the individual field, but also influences the subtlest layers of reality around. That's why it must not be repeated. That's why it only needs to be sung once. The question is, why exactly does this sound have such a definitive effect? And what makes it work with such precision that it never needs to be repeated? And that's exactly where the crucial point is. Because it's not enough to know the sound. It's not enough to repeat a mantra, memorize syllables, chant ancient words hoping that something magical will happen. That's the mistake many make, treating sacred sound as if it were a formula, as if just pressing the right button would make the universe respond. But that's not the language of vibration. And Thoth already said, a sound is just a sound until the field is ready to hear it. The truth is uncomfortable for the impatient. The sacred sound doesn't depend on the sound. It depends on the state of origin. What gives power to the sound is not the volume, the diction, or the fidelity to the original pronunciation. What activates the field of transformation is where that sound is born from. The quality of the inner space that emits it. Because the mouth can repeat the sound, but if the heart isn't aligned, the universe doesn't respond. At best, it echoes back. That's why the ancient initiates would spend weeks, sometimes months, in absolute silence before vocalizing a single sacred syllable. They knew that without the proper vibrational state, the sacred sound doesn't manifest as a code. It remains inert, like a seed thrown onto stone. It doesn't sprout. It doesn't penetrate. It doesn't activate anything. And what is that state? It's the state they called 0 point. A vibrational place where the ego is no longer acting, where the mind is no longer trying to manipulate the result, where the body is no longer tense from anxiety. It's an emptiness, but a living emptiness, a fertile pause, a dense silence of presence. It's not absence, it's fullness without interference. It's at this point that everything becomes possible, because the sacred sound needs space to reverberate. It can't be born amid the noise of haste, doubt, or expectation. When the inner frequency is still polluted by recurring thoughts, automatic judgments, or unprocessed emotions, the sacred sound doesn't align. It's blocked before it even comes out. But when the field enters vibrational rest, something changes. The body naturally starts to slow down. The heartbeat harmonizes. Breathing becomes deeper. The mind loses the urgency to control everything. And in that state, the soul starts to make space for the sound to emerge from within, not as an effort, but as a reflection, a vibrational overflow. That's why the ancient masters used to say, the sound is the arrow, but the state is the bow. Without the bow drawn in balance, the arrow doesn't fly. Without the prepared field, the sound doesn't reach. It's no use singing loudly. It's no use repeating 100 times. Vibration doesn't respond to quantity, but to coherence. And that coherence starts before the sound. It starts when you surrender. When you let go of trying to make it work. When you stop looking for an answer out there and decide to dive into silence until something real emerges from within. The real power isn't in the sound itself, but in the awareness with which it is generated. In that moment, when everything inside you aligns, the sacred sound is no longer something you say. It becomes something you emanate. It vibrates in every cell, in every layer of your energy field. And when that sound is finally vocalized from that place of full silence and real presence, it doesn't just echo, it transforms. And this is where the miracle begins that no one can really explain with words. Because when the sacred sound is sung from the 0 point, it reorganizes the particles around you. It aligns the timelines. It touches the oldest patterns that have been trapped in your field since childhood, or even before that. It speaks the language of the universe before language existed. And that's why, when you reach this state and allow the sacred sound to vibrate, something irreversible starts to happen. What was out of place begins to return to the center. What was distorted begins to harmonize. What was asleep begins to awaken. Now, with the sound finally activated from within, what do you think happens to your body, your mind, and the reality around you when this frequency starts to expand through your field? This is the revelation that changes everything. And it's exactly in this instant, when everything inside has quieted down, that the sound can finally be born, not as a forced voice, not as an attempt to get it right, but as something that sprouts from the center, a vibration that doesn't come from the mind or the throat. It comes from the middle of the chest, from the point where the heart meets consciousness. Thoth called this moment the point of vibrational reorganization, because when the sound is chanted the right way, in the right state, something deep begins to happen without you needing to understand it. It's like the sound carries an invisible command that your body already knows but had forgotten. This sound doesn't need to be long, or loud or perfect. It just needs to be true. It needs to come from within. It needs to come out with total presence, like a sacred breath, like a living memory being released into the air. And in that moment, the body responds. The first thing you might feel is a wave of heat, not regular physical heat. It's like something lights up inside, a heat that cleanses, that melts old tensions, that dissolves resistances that had been there for years. Then comes a lightness, like the weight you'd been carrying without realizing suddenly drops. Breathing deepens, the shoulders relax, the whole body enters a state of active rest. You're not inert, you're fully present. And then, something more subtle starts to happen. You feel an expansion, not of the body, but of your perception. Like the boundaries of your skin have disappeared and you're blending with the space around you. It's as if the sound opened a window to a wider field, a field where everything is interconnected. In that instant, your energy centers realign effortlessly. The ancients called this spontaneous recalibration. It's when the chakras, previously out of sync from everyday life, return to their natural rhythm, not by control, but by resonance. The right sound vibrated at the right point and everything around responded. This is the moment when the body, mind, and spirit remember what it's like to be in harmony. Not a mental harmony created by logic, but a felt harmony. A state where nothing needs to be fixed because everything is exactly where it should be. The sound that causes this is simple, ancient, and universal. It's been chanted by initiates in different cultures with different names, but the same essential vibration. The oldest Hermetic records refer to it as Ra, a sound that isn't read by the mind, but sung by the field. And when you sing Ra with activated awareness, you're not just saying a word. You're releasing a vibrational code that communicates directly with the highest part of your own energy structure. Ra is the sound of the original emanation, the vibration of awakening, the frequency of realignment. But pay attention. This sound doesn't need to be repeated, because it wasn't made to be accumulated. It was made to be felt, chanted once. And that single vibration, when born from the right point, is enough to reorganize the entire vibrational structure around you. That's why the ancients said, "The one who sings the true sound once with a clean heart never needs to sing it again." Because the universe has already heard. The field has already responded. The reprogramming has already started. And now that the sound has been released, the field has expanded, the body has responded, and the consciousness has awakened, comes the most challenging part. But it's precisely now, after the most sacred moment, that the most delicate part comes. Because it's not the sound itself that transforms everything. It's the field you sustain after it. The sound reorganizes, yes, it recalibrates. But if you don't know how to maintain that new state, the world will start pulling you back to the noise, and what was activated begins slowly to fade. And here's what almost nobody tells you. The vibration you activated with so much care is still fragile in the first moments. It's like a freshly lit flame in the wind. It needs containment, silence, protection. And that's not done with effort, it's done with intention. The first key to keeping your vibration high is breathing, but not just any breathing. There's a specific rhythm that aligns your heart with your energy field. Breathing coherently means inhaling deeply, with feeling, filling your chest without rushing. And then slowly releasing the air, like you're letting go of what you no longer need. Do this for a few minutes, and you'll feel your whole body coming back into balance. The second point is the environment. You might have chanted the perfect sound, but if you expose yourself right after to dense noise, arguments, toxic content, artificial vibrations, the field starts to close. So in the first hours after activation, it's ideal to stay away from anything that triggers reactivity. That includes certain people, but also certain thoughts. This is where the power of the word comes in. Not just the sound you chanted, but every word you speak afterward. Every word carries a frequency. And if after activation you start complaining, criticizing, justifying, or blaming yourself, you're slowly covering in dust what you carefully cleaned. So use words of power, not as canned phrases, but as living, truly felt declarations. The way you speak is the echo of the vibration you chose to maintain. Another essential practice, nature. The Earth's vibration is a powerful ally to sustain elevated states. Touch the grass, walk barefoot, lean your back against a tree, sunbathe with your chest exposed. Sunlight reorganizes your internal circuits like no supplement can. And nature has a magical detail. It doesn't demand anything. It just accepts you. And in that acceptance, you start to remember who you are. But maybe the most important thing of all is learning not to react immediately. When something knocks you off center, and it will, don't respond right away. Go silent inside. Feel. Let the emotion pass through your body like a wave, without drowning in it. This isn't ignoring. It's allowing the emotion to move without dominating you. This microspace between stimulus and response is where your vibration holds, and where your consciousness strengthens. Sustaining your vibration is like sustaining an inner song. You've already heard the right note. It's already been chanted. Now, everything you do can either keep the sound echoing or slowly muffle its resonance. And this is in every small choice of your day. The tone of your voice, the quality of your silence, the focus of your gaze, the presence of your breath. But even with all this, there's still one last piece. Something that, if it's not in harmony, can simply wipe out the whole process. Or, if aligned, seals your vibration on a new, irreversible level. And it's exactly at this point of transition, when your vibration starts to stabilize, that the opposing force shows up, not with violence, but with subtlety. It doesn't appear as something obvious. It shows up as distraction, as noise, as urgency disguised as priority. The world doesn't need to attack you directly to bring you down. It just needs to keep you too busy to hear yourself. That's why the ancient initiates always said, the vibration activated through sound can only be sustained when protected by silence. Silence, not as the absence of noise, but as a living field where energy stops leaking. They called this vibrational silence, an inner space where you withdraw for a few minutes, not to think, not to seek answers, but simply to stop the leakage. In this silence, the field naturally regenerates, because the energy you would have spent explaining yourself, justifying, worrying, anticipating, now stays with you. Silence is the invisible container that holds the water of the new vibration. It doesn't have to be long or ritualistic, just a few minutes a day, but real minutes, where you surrender to stillness without resistance. And something surprising happens in this state. You start to realize that silence is not an end, it's a bridge. While sound opens the portal, silence keeps you inside it. The vibration you activated with the sacred sound finds, in this quiet space, fertile soil to grow and deepen. And the more you stay in this field, the less effort it takes to sustain the new state. This is where most people fail. They start talking too much again, exposing themselves too much, thinking too much. And every word spoken without awareness, every automatic reaction, every racing thought, slowly empties the vibrational field that was once full of presence. But when you deliberately choose to stay silent, you break this cycle. Silence becomes a shield. It doesn't block the world, but it keeps the world from getting inside you. And over time, you notice something even deeper. The silence starts to speak, not with words. It speaks through sensation, through presence, through clarity. You start understanding what's happening around you without needing to interpret. You start to feel when something is real and when it's just interference. And it's at this point that regeneration becomes automatic. Daily silence, even if brief, becomes a high-frequency charger. You don't need to do anything, repeat anything, prove anything. Just be there, fully, in the space between one thought and another, in the space between one noise and another, in that micro gap where the soul breathes on its own. The sound opened you, the silence seals you, but even then, there's still something working against you, even when you're calm, an invisible force operating on the subtle plane, one that tries to infiltrate not through what you do, but through what you unconsciously believe. It's active all the time and needs to be neutralized before your new vibration starts to disintegrate. This invisible force that hits you even when you're in complete silence has a simple name, but a silently devastating power: environment. And it doesn't act like a storm. It sneaks in, it permeates, it shapes, without fanfare, the frequency of your energy field until you don't even realize how far you've drifted from the original vibration you activated. The environment is like a bass frequency, a constant background music that your soul hears even when your ears don't notice anymore. It's the vibrational backdrop of your life. And if that backdrop is stained, misaligned, or loaded with dense frequencies, everything you try to build energetically there will be drained little by little. The most dangerous part is that this process is rarely abrupt. It happens like subtle erosion. A room with too much stuff, a closet full of objects you don't even use, but that carry heavy stories, a window that's never opened. The accumulation of soulless objects, cold artificial lights, the noise of negative news, or even a human presence that, despite the smile, exudes complaints and defeatism in every sentence. This kind of influence doesn't shout, It whispers, constantly. And that's where the danger is. You think you're fine, but you start having disconnected thoughts, feeling exhausted for no apparent reason, restless when trying to relax, compulsive yawns, sudden laziness, or even random pains that come and go with no explanation. These are signs that the environment is directly interfering with your field. Your vibration isn't something isolated. It's interdependent. It creates a network with everything around it. The space where you live, sleep, work, or meditate isn't neutral. It's like a living membrane. It absorbs your energy, and it also gives back what it absorbed. Everything around emits a type of vibrational response. And if that response is dissonant, it starts pushing you out of the frequency you fought so hard to achieve. That's why the ancients never did their rituals in messy places. They knew space is the mirror of the soul. And for that, they maintained daily and powerful harmonization practices that didn't require effort, just intention. Starting with aroma, lavender to calm, rosemary to clear, sage to purify, myrrh to seal. These scents aren't just natural perfumes. They are liquid frequencies that turn into waves when spread in the air. Every molecule charged with essential oil comes into contact with your field and reorganizes the invisible. Then, sound. The frequencies of 432 Hz and 528 Hz, popular today, are much more than spiritual trends. They resonate with the natural proportions of the universe, the golden ratio, the harmony of DNA, the vibration of plants. Playing these frequencies, even at low continuous volume, is like keeping a vibrational field working in the background, dissolving invisible tensions and disarming accumulated energies in the environment. Then, crystals come in as silent guardians. Amethyst transmutes. Quartz amplifies. Tourmaline protects. They don't make noise, don't shine for nothing, but their ordered geometric structure emits a constant frequency that stabilizes the surrounding field. Placing a crystal on your nightstand or in your meditation spot is like installing a vibrational sentinel guarding your peace. And there's still the simplest and most effective element, water and salt. The oldest combo of all. A glass of water with coarse salt, placed in strategic corners of the room or under the bed, acts like a magnet for what doesn't belong. The salt pulls, the water dissolves. Change this water every 2 days. Watch, feel. The air shifts, the weight shifts. The vibration becomes livable again. But none of this works if you ignore the main thing. Your body is the most accurate sensor there is. It knows before the mind. If you walk into a place and feel heavy, tight-chested, a sudden urge to leave, or a tiredness that makes no sense, listen, your field is warning you. The environment is draining more than it's giving back. That's why vibrational cleaning of your space needs to become a ritual, not a mechanical act, but a renewal of the pact between you and the place you live. A silent agreement that that space will protect you, not sabotage you, will lift you up, not drag you back down. The frequency you activate it with so much care needs a vibrational home where it can breathe. And that home starts outside you, but extends all the way into your field. However, even in absolute silence, even with everything clean, crystallized, scented, tuned, there's still something missing. One last link. An invisible gesture that seals the frequency. A final practice. Without it, everything can be lost over time. And it's this last practice that turns your vibration into something no one can ever take from you. Because after it, your frequency becomes permanent. It's at this subtle and often ignored point that most people get lost. They feel the awakening, notice the vibrational expansion, experience a kind of clarity they didn't have before. Their thoughts get clearer, emotions more balanced, the body lighter. For a while, everything seems perfectly aligned. But then, like sand slipping through fingers, that new vibration starts to dissolve. Slowly, the old field seeps back in, old habits return, reactivity, inner confusion. And then the doubt comes. Was that even real? Yes, it was real, but it wasn't sealed. What many don't understand is that awakening isn't the final point. It's just the first contact with the new frequency. And that contact needs to be sealed to become stable. Without the seal, what was sacred becomes a memory. And what was changed becomes a recollection. Thoth knew this, and he left clear teachings about the process of energetic fixation, something he called the vibrational seal. And here's the key most don't want to face. The seal doesn't happen in comfort. It doesn't arise during a peaceful meditation, nor does it form in moments of high inspiration. The seal is born in the fire, in the exact moment when your vibration is challenged. Thoth called this process radical presence. A state of spiritual vigilance where you don't run, don't repress, and don't regress, even when everything around you tries to pull you back into old patterns. It's like walking in the eye of the storm while keeping your heart calm. You don't need to fight the chaos. You need to stay conscious within it. Traffic jams. The phone rings with bad news. A painful memory sneaks in out of nowhere. Someone provokes you. A situation beyond your control arises. And in that exact second, you have a choice. You can go back to reacting the way you always have, or you can activate the seal. And activating the seal means feeling without falling, breathing without running, looking without judging. It's the internal choice to hold the new vibration even under pressure. This doesn't mean being passive. It means being present. It's staying whole even when the world is falling apart. It's staying awake when everything wants to numb you. And in that moment of pure consciousness, something deep happens. Your field registers. Yes, it registers. The energy field that was just floating with your new frequency now starts to memorize. It understands that this vibration isn't a visitor, it's a resident. You're not trying to vibrate in a new way anymore. You are that vibration. And like an invisible muscle that just got activated, it starts getting stronger. You become more stable, more centered, more coherent. What used to be an effort now becomes your nature. But pay attention to this delicate point. The vibrational seal can only be activated by you. No master can seal your field for you. No guide can make that crossing for you. This is an intimate, solitary, and at the same time sacred process. It's you facing the choice. It's you facing the chaos. It's you carrying the responsibility to remain in the new even when everything tries to drag you back to the old. This choice, repeated multiple times, is what stops your vibration from fluctuating. And when the fluctuation stops, energetic stability is born. But here's the detail that almost nobody talks about. There is a ceiling to what you can sustain on your own. There's a point where your individual strength starts to run out, not because of failure, but because of structure. Thoth used to say, everything that vibrates in unity expands. The seal, no matter how well activated, needs collective support to reach higher levels. And that's where a force forgotten by many on the spiritual path comes in, the collective field. When your vibration meets others vibrating at the same frequency, it's not just reinforcement, it's multiplication. The field amplifies, the energy renews, and that vibrational signature that seems strong but lonely now sustains itself with fluidity and power. Without this, the seal can start to crack. Small leaks from the old can show up again. Because the individual field, no matter how awake, is still subject to the interferences of the world around it. This is the point where the seal stops being just protection and becomes propulsion. And this, as we'll see, changes everything. When the seal holds, the vibration stops being just a personal state and becomes a signature that echoes beyond you. It's no longer limited to your body or your emotions. It starts influencing space, people, events, even without you saying a word. That vibrational signature turns into a silent call, almost like a subtle emission of light that crosses planes and touches other fields, even at a distance. And that's where something grand begins to happen. Without realizing it, you tune into an invisible field that has always been around you, the collective field. It's not a theory or an abstract concept. It's a living, pulsing organism that responds to everything you vibrate. It feels you. It responds. And when your new frequency is coherent enough to remain stable, this field starts acting like a mirror and an amplifier at the same time. That's when your vibration stops being solitary and becomes resonance. Before you even open your mouth, your energy field has already connected with someone else's field. It's a silent dance, but it's absolutely real. The phenomenon behind this is called energetic entrainment, the natural tendency of vibrating fields to synchronize. Meaning, when two fields meet, one tries to adjust to the other. Always. No exceptions. It's not about conscious choice. It's a natural law that works all the time, even if you don't notice. And that's why so many people start the day feeling good, but end up drained, irritated, confused, without knowing why. Many times, it's not yours. It didn't come from you. It's the collective field trying to pull your vibration to what's most predominant around you: fear, anger, anxiety, rush. This happens especially when you're surrounded by heavy environments, negative news, shallow conversations, or people disconnected from their own energy. But the opposite is also true. When you connect with someone who vibrates in an aligned, true-centered way, the effect is almost magical. Your vibration rises instantly. It's like your inner fire just got more wood, more air, more life. Suddenly, you feel clarity, inspiration, strength. And this happens effortlessly, because in this kind of meeting, the field doesn't drain. It feeds, it nurtures, it expands. That's why Thoth emphasized the importance of vibrational alliances, not for status, affinities, or words, but for the energetic quality of presence. He said words deceive, but vibration reveals. And that's why the most important question you can ask yourself is not who is by my side, but what is vibrating by my side. You can be surrounded by people yet vibrationally alone, and you can also be in silence with someone and feel the deepest expansion just by that soul's presence. What really matters is coherence, vibrational truth, energetic integrity. And that's not visible, but it's absolutely palpable. Now, that doesn't mean you should withdraw from the world. On the contrary, Thoth taught that the collective field is one of the most powerful tools that exist, but only when used consciously. It can become your greatest shield against vibrational attacks. It can protect, sustain, and amplify what you've activated individually. But it can also be the crack that lets the old patterns sneak back in. It all depends on your lucidity. When you start seeing reality through this lens, everything changes. You realize that you can shape your environment with intention, that you can subtly and firmly choose the energies you want around you, not out of rejection, but out of alignment. You can adjust your routine to include more real connections, moments of presence, meetings with those who nourish your soul. You can even protect your field in crowds simply by activating your presence and turning your energy inward. You become the center, and when you're steady, you can quiet external noise just with your breath. You can transform the vibration of an entire place with your rooted awareness. You can stabilize shaky fields just with your presence. And this is not a gift, it's training. It's coherence applied with consistency. But here comes the deepest point of all. The collective field is not just for protection, it's a channel for creation. When multiple consciousnesses align on the same frequency, something extraordinary happens. Reality bends, time responds, probabilities reorganize, the invisible manifests. It's like each individual stops being a solitary candle and becomes part of a collective bonfire. The vibrational power of this unified field is so intense that what seemed impossible starts to happen. Synchronicities, unexpected solutions, opportunities showing up out of nowhere. Why? Because the vibration became a creative force, no longer just defensive, but active. And this leads us to an inevitable question. If your individual vibration has already transformed so much, what exactly can you create when it consciously and intentionally joins with other awakened vibrations? And it's at this exact point in the journey that the invisible becomes tangible. When your vibration, once contained in the intimate field of your internal transformation, starts weaving into the collective field, something subtly but undeniably changes. Reality around you starts to respond in ways that are almost imperceptible at first, but soon the signs become so clear that it's impossible to ignore. Small events unfold like dominoes that someone started pushing behind the scenes of the universe. You'll notice it in the smallest things. That message you weren't expecting but arrives at the perfect moment. A random encounter that becomes a turning point. A path you always avoided but that now reveals an unexpected opportunity. Everything starts to conspire so precisely that even the most rigid skeptic would start questioning their certainties. And we're not talking about spiritual metaphors or poetic illusions. We're talking about concrete manifestation, physical doors opening, paths literally building themselves in front of your feet, like reality is bowing to the new frequency you carry. Because the field you emit is not just a pretty aura or a positive emotional state. It's a wave, a vibrational emission that travels through subtle space and reaches layers that logic can't touch. The universe, as Thoth taught, doesn't move by language or desire or urgency. It organizes itself by frequency. That's why it responds to what you are, not what you say you want. It recognizes the field, not the plea, the coherence, not the attempt. And now, with your field aligned, purified, sealed, and anchored, this response becomes inevitable. The right vibration starts attracting everything that matches it, not by luck, not by miracle, but by vibrational correspondence. Frequency has become your new address, and what's meant for you vibrates on that same code. That's why doors that have been closed for years can open in days. And they do open. People who were distant reappear. Paths intertwine. Solutions fall into your lap effortlessly. What seemed impossible becomes just a natural consequence. Because now you're no longer creating reality as if building it from scratch. You're allowing the right reality to recognize your vibrational signature and find its way to you. You become magnetic, a focal point of conscious manifestation. And the most interesting part, you don't have to force it. The effort ends when coherence begins. The universe doesn't respond to shouting, but it immediately obeys a pure and constant vibration. This is when everything that once seemed distant starts to emerge with clarity. Projects flow. Connections form with ease. Time seems to reorganize itself to favor your steps. And you realize the field is organizing life from the inside out. There's no more struggle, there's flow, and in that flow, there are answers. But this is where the risk lies. Because when the first answers arrive, many people make a subtle, almost invisible mistake that, if not recognized, can silently undo all the vibrational work done so far. This mistake doesn't come with alarms. It disguises itself as doubt, distraction, a return to old habits. It shows up as an automatic reaction, seemingly harmless. But in practice, it collapses the field and blocks expansion. And this mistake, unfortunately, is more common than it seems. Picture this. You did everything right. Activated the new vibration, felt your field reorganizing, made the sound vibrate inside your body, sealed the frequency, breathed differently. The world started responding with synchronicity. But then, one random day, in the middle of your routine, you get distracted. A setback, an obstacle, an unexpected emotion, and without realizing it, you say something like, "Maybe it was just my imagination. I think I fooled myself." Or worse, nothing ever changes. And in that instant, something invisible happens. The field that was elevated, sealed, nourished, starts losing consistency, like a structure losing its base and slowly collapsing. No alarms, no noise, but with real impact. Thoth warned about this exact point. He called it the vibrational return point, a moment when the old self tries to retake the space that was emptied, not with force or aggression, but with familiarity. Because the old pattern doesn't just disappear because it was overcome. It watches, lurking, waiting for openings. And the most common opening is emotionally verbalized doubt. Words have a field. Emotions have momentum. When both unite, a negative phrase said with feeling, what you're doing is rewriting your own vibrational signature, even if just for seconds, even if without noticing. It's like typing, with your own voice, the password to your old frequency and authorizing the return of what had already been dissolved. The mind, trained for years to survive in scarcity, fear, and the logic of effort, starts questioning the lightness, starts doubting the flow, starts feeling weird about the silence. And that's when it reactivates the old connections by itself. And if you're not present, radically present, it takes back control. But the most dangerous part is what comes next. Because when the field starts collapsing, the signs stop, the answers stop, the opportunities that were about to reveal themselves pull back. And you, not realizing it was the field that wavered, start to believe that nothing ever really happened. And that feeds the old pattern even more. It's a silent but powerful cycle. A cycle that destroys vibrational work not through external attacks, but through unconscious self-identification with the past. That's why Thoth said, the field doesn't respond to what you wish, it responds to what you identify with. True manifestation doesn't happen at the peak of activation, it manifests in the sustaining. It's how long you can stay in that vibrational state even when the world tries to pull you back with news, people, habits, memories. It's the energetic consistency that turns an insight into tangible reality, and that requires internal vigilance. Not paranoid vigilance, loving vigilance. You become the guardian of your frequency. You watch the thought that arises, the emotion that sneaks in, the word that tries to slip out, and in the face of that, you choose. You choose to stay in the new field. You choose to reaffirm what was activated. You choose to sustain what you've become. That's the flame in the middle of the storm. A flame that, if protected, crosses the darkest night without going out. But that can also vanish with the wind of an unconscious thought if you're not anchored. The ancients knew this, and that's why they didn't just rely on intention or meditation. They created vibrational patterns that re-educated the body and mind to stay in the new field. They repeated gestures, sounds, movements, breaths, not out of superstition but out of energetic wisdom. They knew the body needs to learn to feel safe in the new, and that the mind needs repetition to solidify what was revealed. Thoth didn't just teach this. He left a code, a hidden, ancient pattern passed down by initiates that acts directly on the vibrational matrix of time. Yes, time. Because the frequency you sustain doesn't just change your energy, it starts affecting your relationship with time. And when that happens, cycles reorganize. What seemed slow speeds up. What seemed confusing clears up. What was unreachable gets closer. And that code is what we're going to access now. If you made it this far, it's because this vibration has already started waking up inside you. So right here in the comments, I activated my original frequency. This sentence is not just a symbol, it's a vibrational declaration. Every person who writes strengthens even more the field we're creating together here. And pay attention, don't leave yet. And if you want to help more directly, there's a support space right below. With your contribution, we can bring this wisdom to even more people who are ready to remember who they really are. A special video has been prepared that complements exactly what you just experienced. It will appear on your screen. Click to continue this journey with me. There, you'll understand how to keep this new vibration alive inside you without ever going back to the old pattern.